So our panel today of our UUBF board members are from Tibetan, Zen, Insight Meditation, and secular sanghas, who will share their paths to becoming a Buddhist, their lineage, their practice, and what UU Buddhism means to them. I'm going to get to the questions that we're going to be hearing our board members address, and you'll be addressing the same questions. How did you become a Buddhist? Do you practice in a particular tradition or lineage? Why did you choose your current community or lineage? And what does it mean to be both a Buddhist and a Unitarian Universalist? And so we're going to have four basic groups representing the Tibetan lineage is Wiley, secular is Terry, and Insight Meditation, Sam, Zen is Erich. He has a recorded message for us. Okay, so we will begin with Wiley.
Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here today. My name is Wiley Saicheck, and I primarily practice in the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism. This is the school of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and it is part of the Mahayana tradition. To quote my Dharma center, Shantideva center, the core values of Tibetan Buddhism are wisdom and compassion. And we experience these through listening, contemplation, and meditation, with a goal that learning just like us, everyone wishes for happiness and to avoid suffering. I came to Buddhism in 2018 following my mother's passing. I was having a pastoral care conversation with the now Reverend Pamela Patton at All Souls, New York City, which I've been a member of since 2006. Pamela is a UU and a Buddhist, but at that time I knew nothing about Buddhism. In the conversation about mom and some other deaths in my family, I shared my thoughts about death being natural and about my firm belief in past and future lives, and how all of this was helping me get through my grief despite how hard it was. Because of the topics we were addressing, after listening to me, Pamela looked at me and asked if I was a Buddhist too. And it was one of those strange moments because I had never even considered Buddhism. I never thought about it, but it felt like a light bulb had gone on. And Pamela reminded me of the meditation series at our church led by Dr. Pilar Jennings, which had been going on for about 2 years at that point. And I started attending, and the rest was history for me there. Both Pamela and Dr. Pilar Jennings practice in Tibetan schools. And later that summer in 2018, a Tibetan Buddhist center called Shantideva Center opened right up in my neighborhood. So I began to feel like I was karmically drawn to this presentation of Buddhism. I like the way the Gelug school has organized the Buddhist teachings called the Moraine. I like their language about the mind stream. I like the way they outline rebirth, even if everyone does not believe in it. And the more I studied and practiced, the more it felt like I was remembering teachings I had heard before. Practice-wise, one of my favorite meditation techniques is Tonglen, a Tibetan compassion practice where you visualize breathing in suffering and breathing out love and compassion. I often combine it with loving kindness meditation, which comes from the Theravada tradition. Right now, most of my study is sutra-based, and my practice is built around the four immeasurables and focusing on Tonglen and metta. I do have a growing interest in the Tibetan presentation of the medicine Buddha practice and the various Tara practices, and reading about clear light mind, which is all the Vajrayana side of things. And a lot of people equate Tibetan Buddhism with Vajrayana, but not all Tibetan Buddhists practice Vajrayana. So I'm definitely interested in learning more about that. And Tantra uses methods like meditation and deity visualizations to rapidly achieve full enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. To bring the UU piece in, what drew me to Unitarian Universalism in the first place was religious pluralism and the UU values and principles that discuss our interconnectedness to each other and to the wider world. To me, the Buddhist concept of Buddha nature fits well with the concepts of universalism. The blending of Unitarian Universalism and Buddhism helps me remember the way I want to be in the world. Focusing on the four immeasurables, which are loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, helps me steady myself when my UU activist side begins churning. And then the UU side reminds me not to be complacent and that compassion is a verb, not something passive. So I will stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Wiley. Okay, appreciate that. And Terry is up next. Okay, in that case, how about Sam?
I'm ready. So hopefully we can find Terry wherever he is. So I grew up a Unitarian Universalist. So I didn't choose this place. I can't escape it because you can't leave UU. It's really difficult. I grew up a secular materialist, atheist. Would still probably be one, except that while I was in college, studying computer science and electrical engineering at UC Berkeley, there's a long story, but to condense it very briefly, I had a very powerful opening experience, spiritual experience, a couple of them that happened completely unexpectedly, as I suppose they generally are. And it threw me into this spiritual journey, spiritual search. And I was going out. The San Francisco Bay Area is a wonderful place to be exploring different spiritualities. I was doing lots of New Age things. I got involved with the Sufis and doing Sufi dancing and did all kinds of stuff and did spiritual healing. And a fellow recommended that I might want to check out this Buddhism class. So I decided to go, and I was sitting there in the first class, and he talked about the Four Noble Truths. And I was blown away by the Four Noble Truths. That truth about suffering, of dukkha, was so important to me because I had childhood illness, and I'd always thought of myself as a flawed person. Everybody else is having this wonderful life except for me. And because I have chronic issues related to that. And to see that suffering is the nature of existence, not like, the problem with existence, but problem existence, but it's something that's built in. And then discovering Tanha, which was how I dealt with that problem, wasn't too functional, and that I was making it worse. But then there's this third noble truth. There's a way out. Yay. And not only, it would be bad if there was just a way out, but you couldn't get there. You said get lucky, but this had a path. So I was completely on board with it. And I began practicing in the insight meditation tradition. The people that I was listening to, I really found that the Satipatthana Sutta was very appealing to me because it was very psychologically oriented. It allowed me to experience in my body, the path. And that was so incredibly valuable to me because a lot of my problems had to do with my body. So Um, and then I love the long meditation retreats because for 10 days or longer, that these kinds of retreats, I had a more amazing transformative experiences in that context. So that, in terms of whether to do a different tradition, this was the one that I really found that it was working for me. So I kind of stuck with it. The growing up in that secular humanist orientation, the fact that there weren't any gods or beliefs that I needed to sign up for, there wasn't any magic involved either. And particularly, I was very attracted to the idea that the Satipatthana Sutta is the direct path. At least that was, the propaganda that I got, the direct path to awakening. So I was really attracted to that. Plus, a lot of the people that I met, a lot of the ways that the meditation retreats were done were very UU friendly. I thought this is a great place for me. I eventually went into UU ministry, and I found that I had this big struggle because I was just so attracted strongly to Buddhism, whether I should be going off and become a good Buddhist and study to be a teacher or something like that. What the compromise that I came to that really made sense to me was that UU is a very young religion. We don't have the kind of 2,500 years of depth of practice that Buddhism does, but that we have something that's extremely precious, which is this pluralistic point of view, and that we're growing and developing together, and that we're learning and growing together. And so for me, my meditation practice became the fuel that was critical to my ministry, to be able to be a UU minister, and then bring the fruits of my practice to my congregation. I didn't have to make them into Buddhists. What I needed to do was to become very deep into the Buddhist tradition so that I could be the full person that I could be, to be their minister to the people in the congregation, to be a good minister. The other part of it is that, especially growing up UU and having significant, it's easy to be, I think it's easy to be critical of Unitarian Universalism for its juvenile nature as a religious tradition. But my commitment is to help Unitarian Universalism grow and develop as a faith, that I can be a vehicle, because the pluralism that we practice, the inclusivity, the commitment to equity, justice, and interdependence, there's so much about our core values that are so desperately needed by the world, that I want to be part of helping Unitarian Universalism develop into someday, hundreds of years from now, being a mature faith, if we last that long as a civilization. But I feel like we have so much to offer, and Buddhism is so critical in terms of giving some of the juice that UUism needs in that growth and development process. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Sam. Terry, you are next, my friend. Great to see you.
I apologize deeply. The time zone stuff screwed me up. I was going to join everyone at 7 o'clock, not 6 o'clock. So I am really, really sorry. I was on a board meeting with another organization. So anyhow, it's great to be with you all. And I do apologize to all of you for my mess up.
It's okay.
So let me just say, I'm representing secular Buddhism. And so how did I become a Buddhist? Actually, in 1998, an acquaintance called me and said, Terry, I'm outfitting the first ever silent Buddhist backpack in the United States. Erich will be the Dharma teacher, and you have to come. This was to someone, myself, who has never backpacked, never meditated, but I'd met this guy and I really, really valued him. Never heard of Erich Kolvig, any of that kind of stuff, but kind of stupidly, I guess, I said yes. And it utterly changed my life, and have then been going on retreats every other year for the first, I don't know, 8 or 9 years on wilderness backpacks and canoe retreats with Erich and then others. And that's really what got me started on my Buddhist journey. Also, at that time, I also read Stephen Batchelor's book, Buddhism Without Beliefs, probably very early on at that time. And I resonated so terribly strongly with that book that I knew that was it's not a lineage, but that was the thinking I wanted to bring to my reading of all the different books on Buddhism that I was doing. Also, obviously, Tricycle, Lion's Roar, and all the other books that are out there. So it really was this reading of Buddhism Without Beliefs, and then doing a couple, 3 retreats with Stephen Batchelor. And my Dharma coach early on was Stephen Scatini, who was in Tibet with Stephen Batchelor for 8 years and studied with him. He was my teacher. And then also the work of Winton Higgins, among others. So then that was the lineage that kind of chose me. And I was attending a Unitarian church here in Oak Park, and I decided I wanted to start a little sitting group, not as a Dharma teacher, but just to get a group of 12 people together. That was my hope, to look at readings, look at podcasts, look at video casts, and discuss it. And our plan was to do that on Tuesday evenings. I met with our minister. He suggested that I develop a adult ed class. So I did that. And then immediately after that adult ed class, we started our Tuesday evening Sangha. So that's what got our Sangha going. We call it the Mindful Reflection Community. And we meet on Tuesday nights. We meet every morning, 7 days a week now. And we meet in Forest Preserve once a month. And that's been the evening meeting now is coming up on 11 years. The daily sit, I think, is 6 years. And the weekly or monthly meeting in the Forest Preserve is 7 years coming up. So it became quite strong and a big part of our congregation. And we have a large number of people attending. We have 50 people every morning. And we had 28 people at the Forest Preserves. And we have usually around 30 people on Tuesday night. So what does it mean to me to be both Buddhist and UU? Well, I joined a Unitarian congregation in 1975, and I immediately resonated with it. And I see Unitarianism as providing a great framework for an ongoing spiritual journey as we look at our shared values, principles, and the formation of many sub-communities in our church amongst the big community of the church. And we really focus on individual search for meaning, purpose, and spiritual depth, rather than a creed or dogma. It's a dynamic living tradition that celebrates diverse beliefs and draws inspiration from many sources, including science, poetry, personal experience. And I fell in love with it immediately. and continue to be fully in love with it. But that involvement in 1998 with the Buddhism really hooked me on needing a practice, a daily practice where I can implement those values that I hear in Unitarianism, but also the values I hear in secular Buddhism. And it's a practice helped me to remember to live by those values. And I'm embarrassed to say, but hearing a church sermon on Sundays didn't carry through the week. I didn't remember to do it. And by having a practice, it hooked me. And then seeing the outcome of my life changing because I was less reactive and I was learning how to respond to my life experiences, filtering in the stuff I've learned in Unitarian Universalism, the wisdom teachings there, the wisdom teachings in Buddhism, and my life was changing. I was finding myself less irritated, less bad driver and yelling at drivers that cut me off. And seeing that hooked me. And so I feel fantastic that my spiritual journey is secular Buddhism, but my religious tradition is Unitarian Universalism. And I love it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Terry. And then our last person, this is a recorded message since I think he's in Germany. This was on Zen by one of our members, Erich Moraine.
I am part of a Rinzai Zen lineage. I have an ordination, and my ordained name is Shokan Muishitsu Roshi. And I guess today the question is, why Zen? Or maybe why Rinzai Zen? The short answer is that's what was in the neighborhood. And the longer answer is that I have gradually become someone that this fits very well to. So Zen is part of the Mahayana lineage, tradition of Buddhism, where the focus is on cultivating compassion and being in service to others, the bodhisattva vow, right? There are other lineages, other traditions where there might be focus on becoming an arhat, on reaching enlightenment, or various other things. But in Zen, it's about being in service to others. And this fits well for me as an individual. And Zen is also, it fits well for me because it's not a devotional practice. There's no external deities or authorities to invoke or curry favor from. The focus is on cultivating from within and finding that authority within oneself. And that works very well for me. Coming from a background of Catholicism, I think I like Zen because in some ways it's kind of minimalist, not a lot of trimmings and trappings. And on the other hand, there are traditions, there are rituals, there are ceremonies. The smells and bells of Catholicism echo in the halls of Zen, which also has its smells and bells. Zen speaks to me because it pokes at my weak areas. Right? Listen more, talk less. I think that's hard for me, and that's part of what appeals to me. I have an ADD kind of brain, and the other thing that really appeals to me about Zen is this idea of concentration practice, which really helps with my ADD symptoms. There's a strong emphasis on focused concentration practice. For me, Zen also aligns very well with my UU values of curiosity and openness and lack of judgment. In that way, these are really close to each other, these traditions. There's a lot of overlap. Zen is not necessarily easy. Some say it's a warrior's path. This idea of concentration practice and looking within, learning to notice my own ego, learning to notice my flaws and shortcomings and injuries is not easy work. It's kind of painful at times. It feels embarrassing, and it feels very challenging. It takes great courage to look that deeply within. And I think it's worth it because what happens is that I become a different person. I'm invited to do so, and there are thousands of years of tradition that I can draw on for support and guidance. So for me, Zen is a very comfortable place, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.